Cool. Yes, hello everybody. So welcome to SaaS Roundtable. I'm more than happy to see you all here today, and thanks for our great speakers. So I'm backed by CFO as a service from startup to IPO, and our focus is in scalable business model. SaaS is becoming mainstream also in traditional industry, but the traditional financial metrics fail to capture growth in SaaS, mainly for two reasons. So SaaS is different because all the costs are generated upfront, while the revenue for the service goes over extended time of the period. And in addition to that, SaaS is data-driven, and this enables use of metrics and analytics. So we wanted to set up this event not only to increase the knowledge of metrics and SaaS valuation drivers, but also to give you hands-on practices how to build up this whole ecosystem, the software ecosystem. So last but not least, I'm very happy to introduce you with Pekka Koskinen, who is angel investor focus on software and also founder of Leadfeeder. So who could be the better person to explain you what drives SaaS? Welcome, Pekka.
Hello everyone. Should I use the mic or without? With the mic, okay. Sounds good. All right. So my name is Pekka. I come from a company called Leadfeeder. And I'm going to tell you how to calculate the most important KPIs for the startup. And this is especially important topic for me because for me as a startup founder, I mainly work based on the KPIs that there are. And I think if you are a startup founder, you should really set up your KPIs so you can drive the boat better with some instruments. So couple of words about Leadfeeder so you get the context. So Leadfeeder is a B2B marketing tool which tells which companies have been on the website. So it's an online tool, and the interesting thing is that our sales model is purely inbound marketing driven self-service SaaS. And because we are not meeting the customers, the only way we get feedback from our business are the KPIs. We have already 1,200 paid customers, so we cannot talk with everybody. So that's why KPIs are really important. What Leadfeeder does is we fetch data from Google Analytics and match that to your CRM and tell which of your customers and new potential customers have been visiting your website. A little bit of my background. So I've started 4 companies, 1 exit. So Snoopy I sold to Fonecta at 2012. I also founded Solinar and Fractio. They are still operating, and now I'm leading Leadfeeder. And in my previous startups, the difference to Leadfeeder has been that we've been selling with salespeople, and now it's purely automated, no-touch sales. So we don't have any sales guys working for us. Currently, we are 23 person. Our monthly recurring revenue is a little bit over 100,000. And when we've been building the business, this has been the framework I've been using to see what actions should I do and what I shouldn't. So the green ones are those that give you high growth, and the red ones give you only costs. So try to avoid those. So on the left side, we have all the marketing tactics you can use. We are using most of them. We have like viral effects going on, so you share to get more free usage. For example, we are using free inbound marketing, freemium, touchless conversions, and strategic partnerships. And in my previous businesses, I've been doing field sales, but that is so costly, so I wanted to avoid that. So, what are the KPIs you need to know in order to develop this high growth business model? And how do you calculate those, and how do you make the calculation of these automatic? So I'm gonna go pretty detailed here because I've been building this myself, and if there's like many startup founders here, I hope you get some like really practical advice how to do this stuff. So first of all, there's the most important metric, which is the MRR. Yes, please.
Do you share these slides with us?
Yeah, I can share the slides. Yeah. So monthly recurring revenue. So if you have 10 customers paying 100 per month, your MRR is 1,000. If you're selling annual deals, you might be using annual recurring revenue, which is kind of like 12 times the MRR. There's two things you want to do here. First of all, you want to be able to calculate the MRR for every day in your history. So it's not enough that you know the MRR now. You should know the MRR for any day in the history. And in order to do that, you have to have a separate table in the database about your paid account changes. Like every day, what new customers did you have? What did you churn? Who upgraded, downgraded, reactivated? If you have that table from the day one, you're able to tell your MRR and your customers on any day in the history, and that's important. So you can tell what has been your MRR growth rate. The other point is that you want to divide that at least to 3 different things. So there's the new MRR, which comes from new customers, expanded MRR, which means that how much your existing customers that you had in the beginning of the month, how much did they buy more? And then you have the churn MRR. So those that you had in the beginning of the month, how much of those canceled? And for example, this is the graph of our MRR development. As you can see, we know it for each day during our history. How has it gone? And investors like when you are able to show these kinds of graphs. Also, what we are doing, we are dividing this not to 3, but more. We divide it to 8 different subcategories. So for each month, how much did we churn MRR? How much were downgrades? How much was the new sales? How much MRR comes from those that churned and then came back? What about like new accounts for existing customers and reactivation? So we are able to tell from which source the MRR change comes. Then there's the average revenue per user. This is pretty simple. You just divide the MRR with the amount of customers you are having. But you need this metric in the other calculations, so that's why I wanted to include it here. Churn. Once you go forward, churn will become one of your most important metrics. And nearly every startup I know, they are fighting with the churn. So that's why this is interesting, and investors are really interested in how well are you able to keep your customers. So churn rate is number of cancellations divided by the total number of customers. When we talk about churn, you need to distinguish 2 things. There's a gross churn, which only takes into account the cancellations. And then there's the net churn, which is more important, which also takes into account the expanded sales you do for your existing customers and upgrades and downgrades. And that will tell you what will happen to your existing customer base once you go forward. So how much are you losing revenue from your existing customers if you are not making any new sales? And that should be like maybe 1 or 2% per month maximum. And the goal is to have the negative churn. This is kind of like the holy grail of SaaS. If you're able to do this, you're doing really well. So that means that even though you wouldn't be adding new customers, your existing customers would give you more and more and more money each month. So this is what you want to drive for. And how do you do that? There's two main ways. You upsell to your existing customers, or you create a pricing model which is progressive. For example, MailChimp, Intercom, these. The pricing model depends on how many contacts you have in the system. So that always goes up. So the pricing goes always up. And this is how you, one of the best ways how you generate the negative churn. In the beginning, the churn is not so important. You are more focused on new sales, but once you go forward, the churn is more and more important. Okay, customer acquisition cost gets asked from you probably many times, and every time like startup founders like are a bit hesitant what to answer there. So let's clear this. So it's the sum of all sales and marketing costs divided by the new customers added. So if in 1 month, if your sales and marketing costs are 100,000 and you get 10, let's say 100 new customers, then your customer acquisition cost is 1,000. And what should you calculate as a cost? Well, obviously you need to calculate the direct cost and marketing, like ad costs. And that's typically the mistake many startup founders do. And that's why investors ask for the fully loaded customer acquisition cost that also includes the salaries. So for example, for us, our sales and marketing costs, including all the salaries except mine, it's like 60,000 per month, and we are getting around 120 new customers per month. So our customer acquisition cost is around 500. Yeah.
So do you measure customer retention cost?
No. Should I? No, we are not calculating that metric. No. Okay. Lifetime value. So how long on average are we keeping the customers? And it's pretty easy. It's 1 divided by the churn rate. So if you have 3% monthly churn, your lifetime is 33. 33, yeah. And the lifetime value, it's the average revenue per user times the lifetime, which is the same as the average revenue per user divided by the churn rate. So these are the formulas how you calculate these lifetime values. And when you go forward, the investors are interested what is the ratio between the lifetime value and the customer acquisition cost. So how much more revenue are you generating for each euro you are investing in customer acquisition? And that should be more than 3. We currently have it somewhere like 9 or something, but it should be more than 3. Another key ratio is months to recover customer acquisition cost. So how long you need to have the customer pay you until you get the customer acquisition cost back. And that should be below 1 year, typically. We have it somewhere like 5 months. And then the third interesting ratio is the quick ratio. So this is pretty new, but it's getting asked more and more. So that's like added MRR compared to the lost. So like that defines how fast you are growing. Like you should be adding at least twice the amount of MRR that you are churning. The more, the better, of course. In addition to these metrics, there's funnel and channel analytics, which are really important for us. Those are a bit more like that takes more time to go through, but the main KPIs are like, from which channels do we get those customers that sign up? And also we are tracking from which channels those come that end up paying. That's more tricky to calculate, and you have to have some custom stuff to do that. And then there's the funnel of, for example, our sign-up process, how well does that work? So where do people fall out? And these come from Google Analytics. So where do you get this stuff? There's tools like Kissmetrics, Mixpanel, Google Analytics that are telling you most of if you set those right, set up those correctly, then they will tell you most of the metrics. But for us, for example, those haven't been enough. The problem with these tools are they are user-specific and not account-specific. So if somebody, for example, marketing guy signs up for a tool, but it's the sales guy that makes the purchase, these tools cannot understand that they cannot attribute the conversion to the channel the marketing guy used. If you follow, so you need to have like other means of calculating this, and the main way we are doing this is we are using Google Sheets and Supermetrics. If you don't know Supermetrics, it's a great Finnish company that has done this like SQL connector, so you can make SQL to your database and automatically have your Google Sheets updated with your like most recent data. So every night we update all the KPIs, and we have maybe like 10 different sheets which are all the time updated, and we know where we are going, and also those are shared with the investors. And this is a picture from our office. This is like when people come to visit our office, they always take pictures of our like dashboard. Nothing special here, but we have the main metrics visible for everybody all the time, and that has really given the team kind of like feeling of like getting somewhere when everybody knows that the numbers are going up. So this is something I recommend you to do to show the metrics to everybody, especially the monthly recurring revenue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. You can keep it. So, any questions? Yes?
So, what is this net churn? Thank you. So, what is this net churn? It's like how much you lost because you haven't done things. And what's the difference between this net churn and gross churn?
Yeah. So, gross churn is the amount of cancelled monthly recurring revenue compared to the total revenue. But if you, for example, have reactivation, so people coming back to you, or you have downgrades and upgrades, or you have people, existing customers buying more, like some additional products, or you get more revenue from them, then you get like calculate that also in the net churn. So it might be that you lose like 5% of the revenue, but you get 3 back from the upgrades, and the net is like then minus 2%.
So net is like taking into account everything.
Yeah, but not only everything from those customers that you had already as customers in the beginning of the month. So if you are doing additional sales for new customers, you don't take that into account.
Okay, and just this progressive pricing model.
Pardon?
Progressive pricing model.
That means that once the customer uses the tool longer, the price will go up all the time. For example, MailChimp has the pricing model that you pay per how big your contact list is in the MailChimp tool, and that goes up all the time. So you end up paying more and more and more each month.
Yeah, but customer should get something out of it, otherwise he don't want to.
Well, they get a bigger list of subscribers that they can email to, for example.
Yeah.
But that way, Mailchimp gets every month more and more money out of the same customers. So that creates negative churn for them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, any more questions? This is great opportunity. No? So I have one. So from the cost side, so and your software structure, so where do you get your customer acquisition cost if you are including sales and marketing, all the cost? Is it coming from accounting software or?
Yeah. So the salaries come from the accounting software, and then we have the AdWords cost, Facebook costs, and those that also come from the accounting. So it comes from there.
Yeah, and the revenue from the invoicing system.
The revenue we have. People pay to us with a credit card, so we know it from our system how much is the revenue.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, you said in the previous companies you built where there was Salesforce and now there's no Salesforce.
Yeah.
Can you tell the reason? I mean, of course, the cost is one reason, but I think there's more to that.
Yeah. In Finland, telesales works really well. It's easy to get anybody's number and call them and try to do sales. At Snoopy, we then had offices in Netherlands and Stockholm and Baltics, and we saw that telesales was way more difficult in those countries compared to Finland. And we just ended up having costs, like a lot of costs there. So I wanted to create a model where the customer acquisition cost would be lower, because like in those businesses, when the sales guy made the sale, all the 1 year revenues went to the commission of the sales guy. So I wanted to automatize that.
Okay, 2 questions.
Hannu Rautanen from Asset, and we are actually very satisfied with lead feeder customers. So
Great to hear.
First comment is really simple, it's only a comment. Based on that, what I saw, you could start consulting a lot of companies, I would say. I don't know a lot, but as well us, because we're just in the midst of making those metrics. However, the very radical idea of not having any sales personnel, but just inbound. And we've been now doing inbound for quite some time, and how damn hard that is. So do you have any what to do when you create the state-of-the-art, world's best inbound machinery? I just know it's extremely difficult or challenging.
It is, and in the beginning, the only thing that you can rely on is the paid marketing. And once you get more and more users, you want to have some kind of viral effort going on. And we are seeing that we are getting biggest growth in those markets where we already have a lot of customers, because they are talking forward about us. We are using a lot of money in content marketing. We are using US PR agency creating all kinds of PR stuff for us. I have 2 persons just creating content, for example, and doing SEO. So it changes a bit once you go forward. It changes from the focus from the paid marketing to more organic traffic. But it's really hard to get started. But the metrics there help you, especially really much, because then you know which kind of articles, for example, perform, and then you can do more of those.
Yes, there was Taina.
Taina from DLC. We make those pretty dashboards also.
Yep.
Thank you. I was wondering if you measure these metrics on any dimensions, like market area or...
we do that. So in the Google Sheet reports, there's this pivot tool, and you can. So we do that. short answer. And there's a couple of like the market area is one thing, but then also like we calculate the metrics, for example, for those that have integrated their CRM, for example, for us, and what is the conversion rate from paid from trial to paid with them. So we are doing a lot of these like ad hoc analysis on different questions we are having, but then we also have this like just static KPIs that we follow from month to month.
So you have like different goals for each different dimension to reach the same status.
For example, if we want to concentrate on inbound marketing, then we are especially interested in like how much organic traffic we get that land to the blog post, for example, and from which blog post people go forward and sign up, and then we make those analyses.
Okay, there was one more question, and then we move forward.
It's Festa from Saydat, and we also use your service. We're quite happy with it. So I have a question. We were talking about the Salesforce and the marketing inbound. Have you had any Salesforce before, or you started right away with marketing inbound? And if you had, how was the transition between these two?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like in my previous startup, we first had a lot of Salesforce, and then we tried to go to inbound model, and that failed miserably because there's lots of problems related to that. For example, the price level needs to be way lower when you do inbound marketing compared to face-to-face sales. Also, like providing trials, the sales guys don't want to like do that, but that's like necessary for the inbound model. So it's really difficult to come from, because you need to cannibalize your own business if you come from like this salesperson specific model to the inbound model. So that's why we created from day one the inbound model here, just to avoid the problems that may occur.
It's a bit hard to share the same, to have it working parallel.
Yeah, I would say that it's hard. Yeah. And if you first do the outbound sales model and then you bring the inbound model there, and if you need to put the prices like down, then you are cannibalizing a lot of your existing business.
Okay, big hand for Pekka. So, SaaS and games are both winner takes it all games, and the games is forerunner in SaaS metrics. And today we have a very unique opportunity to learn how one of the most fast-growing mobile game app is using metrics. Welcome, Mikko Kirmanen. Can you? Yes. So Mikko is from Fingersoft, and so Daniel Rantala, who was coming here, so unfortunately he's sick, but we are having very good speaker, another speaker from Fingersoft.
Just a second. Okay, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Great. Hello everyone, my name is Mikko Kirmanen, and yes, Daniel Rantala was supposed to be here, but we work in the same team in Fingersoft Publishing, and I happen to be around the city, so luckily no harm done. Me myself, I started to work in gaming industry in 2007, and now this summer we are building together with Daniel this new publishing portal for game developers on Fingersoft. Today the topic is how to capture growth in a game app. First, a little bit about Fingersoft. Based in Oulu, founded in 2011, And our biggest brand is Hill Climb Racing, and the first one was introduced in 2011 and the second one now in December. Around 40 professionals, and what makes us a good publisher is the 80 million monthly users that we have. So the Hill Climb Racing brand is very successful in gaming going forward. Now, we have 80 million people every month playing our games. This makes us a potential publisher, like I said. We have the possibility of really help game developers out. And it's really fun to work with game developers. They're always so enthusiastic about their products. They love to create. And it's fun work. It's always nice to create your own game, seeing it on your device, coming together build by build. Once the game starts to be kind of ready, you realize quite fast that you need to show it around. It's not enough to know that you like the game and your mom likes the game. You need to show it to external users, players. And that brings the question of user acquisition. Currently, most game developers are first doing the soft launch, and usually what you need for that is few thousand installs, few thousand people playing your game in a certain market. Now, even for that, you need some $1,000 in your pocket. And most developers don't have even that. Some developers already have investors behind it, and this soft launch is not as problematic as it is for the most developers. Nonetheless, it's still costly. And finally, after soft launch, people usually do the global launch or the hard launch. And US is a big market, really important market, usually the biggest market where most of your revenue comes from. And there you have to, we are talking about CPI, and in the last presentation there was the CIC thingy that kind of matches to our CPI, cost per install. So it can be 4 euros or $4. Now, if you need 1 million or 2 million users with that price, you need to know that, okay, it's going to cost huge amount of money. So if you don't have that money, and even if you did have that money, it's still a huge risk. Even if you have a big investor behind it, do you really want to spend 4 million euros on that one single card? Huge risk. Now, one other choice is that you contact a publisher and go with them. Not only are publishers usually providing you installs and players, but they are also usually successful game companies that can provide help with monetization, analytics, and whatever you need. So we have a perfect solution on this one. Now, for us as a publisher, we also face challenges. One is that, well, we've been publishing games for 2-3 years now, and every single day we are receiving some games to our publishing portal, and we soon realized that we don't have the manpower to really take a look and evaluate those games, which is super sad, because there might be some gems in there and nobody paid any attention to that. We want to fix that. Secondly, whenever there is a decision, when a game is evaluated, it's based on opinion of 1 or 2 persons. So it's possible that they got it wrong. There was technical, no, they are talented in our case, but it's still possible that the game had some technical issues and the person responsible wasn't able to really figure out what was the game about. So what me and Daniel are doing in Fingersoft now, we are trying to solve all of these problems that I've told you so far. So let's go. The solution, Littlefinger. It's a working title, but we won't already tell people about that. Basically, we want all the games to be evaluated. No one is left behind or unchecked. We use data to do this. We use basic data, user data that we get from the games. And the second is scalability. We want to be able to, 1 year from now, it's an 18-month project. We started 2 months back, and we want it to be scalable so that we can automatically check out games that are the most potential, and we could handle even hundreds of games every day. That's our goal. So how do we actually think we can achieve this all? First, how to acquire growth. We are introducing alpha stage before the actual soft launch stage. It means that we will have steps, or we call them rounds, maybe 3 or 4 rounds before we are entering the soft launch stage. Now, in alpha stage, we only look at the retention, which is basically the opposite of churn. That is hugely important issue. But in gaming, we usually talk about retention. How well the game retain the users. And that's basically how good the game is. Which percent of the users came back the next day and the following day, the day 7, day 30, day 90. And that determines how, basically, data-wise, how good the game is, how sticky it is. Now, some games are dropped off during the rounds that we do in alpha stage, and some are proceeding further. Eventually, after 3-4 rounds, there is a soft launch stage. Oh, one more thing. In alpha stage, we are thinking of handing out around 1,000 to 1,500 installs for free for the games. No strings attached. So it's really interesting for a developer to enter this because they don't need to sign anything. They get the installs, they can decide what to do. But if the game really is a good one, we wish to sign a publishing agreement with the developer, and so starts the soft launch. We are aiming to drive around, 10 times the amount as in alpha stage in soft launch. So we are talking about 10,000 installs in certain markets. What we do in soft launch stage, we do a lot of A/B testing. We pay a lot of attention to the monetization. We polish the game. We make sure it's ready and it's also meeting the goals that we set in publishing deal. We want maybe the game be even better. So yeah, during soft launch stage might take anything between 4 to 52 weeks. And we just make sure the game is ready for global launch, or the hard launch stage. Once we are there, once we see in soft launch that, okay, the key metrics, the KPIs that we use, the retention, the monetization, ARPUs, and that, I didn't take that here, but you get the point. Once we see that the metrics are good enough, we make a publishing plan. What happens during the following 4 weeks? We let all the App Store and Google Play and everybody know that, okay, this game is coming out, then be ready, help us out, and yeah, a lot of things. We also use paid UA there, but I'll tell about that a little later. So yeah, we can go forward. Now, when we are in global launch, we also drive installs from our own cross-promotion, from the 80 million users that we have. So that gives us power of really push out a lot of installs to the game that we are publishing. So after that, it's not over yet. It's basically beginning, the whole maintaining the game, the further development and whatnot. So the game needs to be great and it needs to maintain the users. There needs to be a solid plan for the updates for the game, new features, challenges, content, at least once a month new build, because that's a great way to maintain people and to even acquire more users. So the game needs to be good. It needs to be maintained feature-wise. Also, there needs to be a new source. There needs to be a source for UA, user acquisition. We are doing it so that we will agree with the developer that certain percentage of the revenue, the total revenue, is directed back to the user acquisition, and that kind of we slowly get rid of our own cross-promotion needs. So that one day the game would be self-sustainable and just working. We can move forward. So I don't know if I ran this through pretty fast, but few points at the end to sum everything up. If you are a game developer or investor working with a game developer and they have an interesting game and you believe it could be something, consider having a publishing partner. Of course, it's possible if you have loads of money and you feel like putting them in the UA, that's cool. But if you're not ready to put a lot of money in user acquisition, consider publishing partner. The second is that it's not like it's crucial that the game is fun to play. That's the whole core. That's something we want to make sure in alpha stage. But it needs to be a great product also. It needs to generate money so that the developer can pay the bills and pay the salaries, and also the owners of the companies are getting something out of it. So it's not enough that it's fun to play. It needs to be a good product. That is what we are doing in soft launch. And basically, I don't know, that's pretty small. I hope everybody can read that. But for an investor, all the games that have gone through our alpha stage and have been accepted to the soft launch stage with us should be a little bit more interesting than the other games and the teams. Because they have data. They can show why the game is good. There is actual data. So I'm glad to talk about that also. We are basically also, we are building this one. Currently we are doing it by hand, this whole little finger agile thingy. But next month we'll start creating the software. And we are now determining all the specs that we need for the software to work properly. One question has always been that, is it like open to everybody? And hard to answer. I think we wish it to be open for everybody, but the truth is that there are big APK factories in China and India, and it's possible that people are just using that in order to get installs from us and then just quitting everything. And so we will always be handpicking, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, now that we've been doing it for 12 weeks, we already have nearly 20 games that we've been looking into, and 4 games that are already in the kind of cross-promotion advertising, and we are getting data, and there is a lot to learn about the whole thing, but it looks good. Anyways, we can go forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Mikko. Let's take one question. Maria.
All right. During the alpha stage or the soft launch, what kind of metrics do you have? Like, how do you know what do you actually need to develop to get the retention?
In alpha stage, we do not want to pay attention to anything else than to question if the game is promising or not. In alpha stage, we do not call or talk with the developer, hopefully, too much. We just want, because there are so many games coming in, we just need to know if a game is potential. So it's the retention, and we're looking at that. Also the session data, how many times per day and so forth. So the stickiness. But in soft launch, that's when we start to really work together and bring in our expertise in monetization, what could be done. We still do not wish to tell the developer what to do. Like it's their game, they should be.
Okay.
That we will never tell them to do something. We will just say that this number is not good enough.
Do
Figure it out.
something.
But if they need suggestions, we will be happy to give them. But so far it's been working quite well, and the developers usually are happy to follow our wishes. But first of all, it needs to be the developer who kind of creates the product. They know the soul, and they know what's really going on with the game.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe a little bit addition to the soft launch stage, what we then look at, then it's the average revenue per user daily based, the retention numbers still, the average purchases, and we do a lot of A/B testing. So, for example, everybody knows that if you play a mobile game, you go to shop, there are certain prices. There, we do want to A/B test what set works best at what time. Like if the player has never bought anything, it needs to have a certain set. But if it's a heavy payer that usually brings 80 to 90% of the income, then the whole production set needs to be product set needs to be a little bit different there, more costly products and so forth. Those all small stuff.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Big hand to Mikko. And
Thank you.
for the next, let's move to the funding side. And I'm more than happy to have all this Pekka, Mikko, and Maria Lehtinen from CHEF, Finn Persson from Spintef Ventures, and Arto Käykkö from Pollen VC to the stage. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. So everybody, first of all, you all have very different background in SaaS and games and this metric side, but all of you have experience in funding. So would you like to introduce yourself from the very beginning?
Okay, well, I already some stuff about me already, but about the funding, yeah. You mean that? Okay. Yeah, currently Leadfeeder is in the middle of the second seed round. We had our first round a year ago. We raised around 500,000, and now we are raising the next round. So and then also during Snoopy times we had like a lot of discussions with investors, but in the end then decided not to go forward and ended up selling the company, which was like really good choice in the end. But yeah, that's my background.
Great.
Yeah, I'm Finn, but Swedish, but I'm very popular due to my name here in this country. I'm one of the founding partners of Spintop, early stage tech VC, investing all across the Nordics. We have B2B SaaS companies, B2C SaaS companies, and gaming companies in our portfolio.
All right. Once again, my name is Maria Lahtinen, and I work in a company called CEF. And at CEF, we make user-friendly and intelligent survey tool that enables to collect information for better decision making. And as a background, I've been working at CEF for 6 years now, and during the last 1.5 years, we have done this total transformation from the traditional Finnish companies selling a bit this and that to this modern and agile SaaS company. And during the last year, we decided to make a complete U-turn and decided to start developing our product from the scratch with a new code language and SaaS principles. And it's been a very interesting year. And this product has been really the lesson learned with all the SaaS principles, guidelines, UX testing, user testing, UX design, onboarding, benchmarking, everything. So, and this is probably the reason why I'm here today.
Thank you. Hello all. I'm Arto Köyhkö from Pollen Capital or Pollen VC. Actually, my background is combining financials and banking information, telecommunications and online marketing. That's my kind of and I guess, Päivi, you invited me here, so I guess that's one of the reasons that I'm sitting here, because I tend to kind of look these information and see what they can kind of provide for you when you're doing investment decisions. Been working for banking and finance for less than 10 years, and then telecommunication and Google also in Dublin, Ireland. So actually I look a lot of different kind of fields of businesses, not only games, even though Pollen VC is mainly investing in games, but I also look different kind of fields of apps like healthcare and wellness and different type of apps, and how they are marketed and what kind of performances those can have. What Pollen VC actually does, we are a bit of a unique beast in this kind of a panel or group of companies, because we are not actually an equity investor. We are more like lending or giving finances for companies to grow. So what we do is actually accelerating your working capital, how you can actually use your working capital the best. So basically we are unlocking funds from different platforms where applications are sold, iTunes and Google Play and Amazon and so on and so forth. So actually your sales are pretty much locked there for 35 days up to 55 days, and that's the kind of market cap where we are sitting and giving that kind of money and funds to your usage at the moment. So that's the Pollen model. Growth capital, I would say.
Yeah, Mikko Kirmanen from Fingersoft. 10 years of experience in gaming, browser games, mobile games, and analytics side. I think that I could briefly tell how Fingersoft got started, because it's kind of a story that could be done once again. But our founder, Toni Fingerroos, started to make these camera applications at first. And those became hugely popular. He made tens of those, and he was able to grow the user base with those. And then he one day decided to make a game, which was Hill Climb Racing 1 for Android. And he was able to promote that one on his camera apps, and it became really popular quite early in 2011. So that's also one way to enter the business without having to put too much money in everything. But I think it requires a lot of work, and you can do it easily these days. But yeah, small story about Fingers, how it started.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. So I will ask one question, and the next one is your turn. So let's get started. So the scaling up too early is one of the most biggest challenge for startup or SaaS or game startup. So when you know it's time to hit the accelerator pedal. So let's start with Pekka.
Yeah, so I would say that the pure answer is when your lifetime value is higher than your customer acquisition cost, then you put the pedal to the metal. So for every 10,000 you get more back. But it's not that simple. First of all, the money will come back in a long time, but the costs happen right away. So that's why it's typically good to only calculate the first year's lifetime value, not the 5-year lifetime value, and compare your customer acquisition cost to that. Also, the challenge is that when you put more money to the channels that work, are those scalable? Can you keep the customer acquisition cost down? For example, for us, if we would put 10 times more budget to AdWords, the customer acquisition cost would go up, because we are already targeting the best keywords. Then if we put 10 times more budget, we need to start targeting other keywords that are not so effective anymore. So the customer acquisition cost will go up. So yeah, you should scale, but be really keep the hand on the pulse on the customer acquisition cost.
You stole two of my comments. You should really listen to this guy. Yes, of course, he's done it a few times. No, but I think in addition to the things you said, I totally subscribe to those two things. It's really important is that their channels are not, they're not kind of absolute. It's a marginal cost game. The cost of customer N+1 is higher than customer N in all channels. I think it's really important to understand it. I think the other thing, in addition to these kind of straightforward metrics, we'll try to look a lot into usage patterns. Gaming guys are really good at that. I think the B2B SaaS can learn a lot from that. Not only figuring out, well, I have a customer that is paying, that's great, but really figure out how they're actually using my product. Sometimes they're actually, if there are actually multiple users within the same customer, how they're actually the depth and breadth of the usage to really make sure that is solid, because then you have a really good foundation to grow. That the customers you bring in, you can really kind of create continuous value out of them and hopefully add more value over time.
I knew that you two would go into the numbers, so that's why my answer is you should hit the gas and go for it as soon as you have your product available online, and as soon as you have somehow automated your onboarding process, so that you're not going to be in trouble later on when you actually get the customers and users. And as a side point, I would say that many experts and SaaS experts, they say that it's going to be a lot of trouble later on try to figure out all the softwares you have supporting your tool or product. So make wise choices beforehand so that it would be easier for you to get them integrated and discussing with each other, and also mirroring all the data that you're going to need when you actually scale.
Yeah, exactly. These are all excellent points, and I would just kind of summarize them in a way, saying that as Pekka said, that if your lifetime value out of a customer or player of a game or however you call your customers, if that's higher than the cost per install or getting the customer in, then you should kind of accelerate. And let's say that from the games industry, at the moment it seems that the games are making on the first 4 to 5 months time, they are making 90% of all of the revenues that they will ever make. So actually it is a kind of a business where you need to keep your fingers on the pulse and see that whenever your marketing campaigns are return on invest positive, whenever your marketing money is well spent, that they are making more money that you are investing on the marketing, then you should accelerate, not to wait let's improve the campaigns and improve the numbers. Obviously you do improve them, but you improve them while running. You have to do it on the same time as you are kind of reinvesting all the monies or some part of the monies on the marketing campaigns. So actually kind of summarize what the colleagues here said is that don't wait and don't kind of think that you have a let's do this on the fall. Do it now if your numbers are backing it up. Otherwise you will miss a huge amount of revenues that are available there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've been part of teams a few times where we failed miserably just because we weren't brave enough to really go out there, and we just thought that we can develop the game forever and every single day it gets better. But you have to realize that at some point when certain KPIs are met, you just, like in our case, it's somewhere along the soft launch, we realized that, okay, the goals are met, now let's make the launch plan, let's do it, this is the date when everything goes out. And once that happened, then we will just use everything we have. It's true that the games will create most of the revenue quite early on, and it's the golden cohort and those people who really also after a year they're still the best payers, but it's really important what happens right at the start, so no kind of slowness anymore there. You've already checked your game, you just need to push the pedal and let it go.
Good. Thank you. Okay, so who will be the happy one to raise first hand? No questions? Yes, Matti?
I have one for Arto. So what is the size of the typical company for you? Is it just is the monthly recurring revenue 100,000 or 10 million or so for those companies who need this financing for maybe 1.5 months from you?
That's actually a very good question. Our standard kind of agreement set allows us, because as said, we are a UK company, we are measuring our kind of risk involvement in sterlings or Great Britain pounds, so it would be 2.5 million pounds per month. That would be roughly 3 million euros. So basically that's the kind of a standard monthly risk that we are willing to take with our clients and customers. We have been working with Fingersoft and the guys, and also number of the kind of key players in the Finnish game scenery. So it's not like the Supercells or Rovios or whatnot you have there wouldn't need this kind of a service. It's kind of the mindset that if you're willing to kind of accelerate and turbocharge your marketing with this kind of loan-based financial instrument. So it's how you see it. If Supercell at the moment is spending roughly 1.2, 1.5 million daily on user acquisition, and they are spending it out of their own pocket, so you can figure it out. So if they would be using a similar service that we are providing or using Pollen, we would be then able to carry that weight for them, and they could kind of invest the money that they already have for other kind of purposes, building a new games or acquiring a new companies or whatever the company wants to do. So it's not a question about size, it's more like question about willingness to grow. So if you have that kind of a mentality in the company that you want to get fast results and you want to grow fast, then we are obviously one of your top choices. But if you need seed funding, or if you need kind of equity investment to get the product ready, then I would say that probably my colleagues would be the right partners to talk. But when you have the product ready and you have somewhat monies to spend on the marketing, then definitely let's talk and let's see what we can do. Because it's not only the funding that we provide, we also do a lot of user acquisition consulting, and that's included in the service fee that we have. So basically, you will get kind of a double benefit by working with us.
Okay. Yes. Second question.
I have a question especially to Leadfeeder. You're now in the midst of raising, if I understood correctly, and with over 100k as monthly recurring revenue, it shouldn't be an issue to raise some funding anyway. But when you raised the seed funding, were you able to show monthly recurring revenues already on some level, or was it all about that great product idea, and with the background of you've done already, it was more like, let's invest in these guys because they seem to know what they're doing, and not about that much of MRR in that event?
I don't know what went around the investors' head when they invested in us. Probably it was like they know me from like previous company. I had operated in the field, and I had already one exit there. But yeah, we had a monthly recurring revenue. I think it was 25,000 or 30,000 already, and it's like the 30,000 is typically the point after which you cannot anymore go like bankrupt. Like if your business starts to go bad, with 30,000 MRR, you are able to pay the servers and a couple of developers and some sales guys. And then once you go after like over 50K, then it's just a matter of time, like how fast are you gonna go, how big are you, can you go? But yeah, like in our case, we were like, it was really good that like I had some money from my previous exit, which I used to fund the first stages of the company, and then we had Tekes also involved early on, so I didn't need to raise the expensive VC money in the beginning. So we already had the revenues and the numbers.
Okay, and then so what is the key valuation driver for SaaS or games? If you would name one.
I would say it's MRR growth. Monthly MRR growth is probably one of the key things, and then really low churn. And if you can show negative churn, that's like really good. The monthly MRR growth needs to be like at least 10%, maybe 15%. So then the numbers are good, and this quick ratio is also really good, metric that captures both the like how much you grow compared to the churn that you are having. I would say that those.
Just building, I mean, at the end of the day, even if we don't like it, it's capitalism. It's about making money at the end of the day. And B2B SaaS business is very straightforward, actually. It goes back to the old, I mean, it's similar to the way you valued software companies. There wasn't anything like SaaS also. It's typically, it's multiples on the recurring revenues, and then it depends a little bit on the stage of the company. I mean, 15% monthly, that's really good to have in the type of when you are at the kind of 2-3 digit MRRs. If you go up to 4 digits, I'd say it's almost impossible to sustain that. That's because the absolute numbers get so high, but it's essentially this recurring revenue multiples, and then the level of multiples depends on your growth rate, depends on your churn rate, depends on your margins. Essentially, those three things.
I really don't know what to add here. Well, maybe I would say, in addition to those, because it's important to get the money, of course, and at the beginning, it's very essential. So how to get the money, how to get the users to your products on an early stage. So maybe you could gain the users via powered by branding. So for example, in our case, when we create survey tool, when our users creates the surveys and they share the surveys, we add the powered by branding so that we get more users, more paying customers, and more revenue.
I don't know. It's sometimes difficult in this kind of a fast-moving industry to give these kind of one-sentence advices, but I tend to say to all of the customers and all of the companies that have been working with us that, don't fight the retention. Let the retention fight the battles for you. So basically it means that, even if your install costs or gaining customers costs would be zero, but if you lose them immediately or if you lose them early, you are not able to grow as fast as you could. So retention is one of the key figures, at least on gaming, and also on number of other applications where you need to kind of constantly keep the customers first coming in, then staying there, and thirdly paying there. So I would say that retention is one of the key metrics and the valuation drivers, at least when we look at the companies that we are working with.
I was going to say retention, but no, I can't anymore. So I'll say LTV. That still ties the retention to the money made on a daily basis. And what comes to retention, then again, it's earlier in the when making games, the day one and very short-term retention is, well, that's the only thing you have. You don't know what's your 90-day retention if you've published the game 2 days ago on a certain market. So later on, naturally, the long-term retention is plays a huge role, but naturally you need the money, and LTV takes care of this also. LTV.
Easy. Okay, any questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Hannele Korhonen. I come from Contract Mill. And I've been listening to this discussion. We have a B2B SaaS product in development. It's for lawyers. So what if your customer is really slow in adopting any new technology? And I just feel like this, of course, I'm not an expert yet on SaaS business, even though I'm in it, but I just think that this logic in all does not really apply to legal tech at the moment, because the selling cycle is so slow with lawyers. So is it so that you should then forget about VC funding maybe, or is there understanding from investor side if the customers are really slow and not maybe following all this pace that you're talking about?
Yeah, so maybe this is a question to Finn.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, but good question. There are all types of SaaS businesses. There are, because SaaS is, at the end of the day, it's a delivery and payment model. We have, I hate to say, but we have SaaS businesses with 9 to 12 month sales cycles. That is, industrial Internet of Things stuff, where they have enormous sales cycles. So that's but it works. I mean, we have invested at least, so I think it works. Then of course, for some applications, you can experiment with kind of lighter packaging, or just have a subset of your functionality. Maybe just sell one function where the purchasing decision is easier than do the full-blown thing. I take the chance also to warn a little bit for this freemium. I think freemium works in games. I think in business software, free lunch eaters tend to be free lunch eaters. I think even some of the biggest successful SaaS companies has learned that the hard way. That you can also Dropbox and others, that free lunch eaters tend to continue to eat the free lunch.
Good. And one question there was, yes?
Yeah. Hi, Kalle. So I just wanted to ask that what's your most latest personal learning, like mistake and learning what you've done recently?
That was a great one. So let's start from Pekka.
Get more hands and help with fundraising. It's gonna take a lot of time.
I can help.
Are you guys ready? You know your answer yet?
I would say that personal learning from the last couple of weeks would have been definitely we were participating in a dating app fair, which is actually an industry fair. It's like Mikko surely knows the Nordic games and pocket games connections, and so there is actually a huge market opportunity at the moment for different kind of dating apps. And it's becoming to be a kind of a own niche industry inside of the app industry. So actually, the learning was that all of the dating apps have a kind of a similar monetization model, and it looks fairly kind of a simple. But then, if you start to drill down it and working with these kind of customers, then you will actually notice that there are limitations of growing. It's an app called Threesome that is actually matching multiple peoples in a same dating or same dates. So actually there is a limitation on markets on finding lucrative customers, freesome customers, or foursome customers, or changing couples or whatever. So there is actually, you have to understand the genres before making any kind of permanent decisions over those. Kind of funny, but actually makes sense even if you think it with games. You cannot scale, let's say, zombie eater game as much as you can do with the racing games. I understand the genres. That was my point.
I have just a recent one actually, because it happened this morning. So a lot of failures going on. No, there was one game. We were looking at these games and already 1 month ago, and we started to prioritize them a little bit because some games are really big, experienced teams behind them, and some games just one guy made something. And this one game was made by one person, and we prioritized it quite low because we were kind of full of work, so we made a mistake there because we agreed that his turn will come later, and we already have an access to the analytics side of his game, and it's doing really well all by its own there. So we should have already given the help that we are about to do, hopefully this week now that we have time. But that was one mistake, that just be faster. Then again, we've been really busy with getting everything started there. However, that really felt like a failure because we didn't understand the fact that even though everybody knows the Flappy Bird things and those, you cannot really look at only the graphics and the team and then decide what is good. We made our first mistake there because we didn't have the data, and we should quickly get the data and then go forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Maria.
All right, the latest learning. We are in the phase of creating the different license types and monetization models at the moment for our new product. So we have the most expensive license type, which is called enterprise license, which is tailored for the quite big companies. And for some reason, I was really keen into giving a lot of things free for the customers, like trainings and consultation and stuff like that. But luckily, people from outside of the company said that wouldn't be that wise, that everything needs to have a price tag, that it shouldn't be included to the price.
I was reminded earlier today, but I think it's a great takeaway that meeting yet another. I'll meet a lot of companies, but there's a lot of things still to be done, both in B2B and B2C, and in particular in the B2C productivity stuff, which is pretty similar to B2B. There's just so many things that could be improved, can be done much better, more effective, more efficient with cool SaaS solutions. There's lots of things to be done. Most things remains undone, I think.
And there was one question. Yeah.
My name is Timo from North City. I have a question about the SaaS metrics that you use. Are you using those to build your team, since we're in a decision making process now once to push our resources to the team and growing the team? And so many things around to need process too. But to ideal examples if we have used or metrics in order to experience more resources in your team. Why?
Yeah, like we are using a lot of metrics to, like we do all kinds of tests, and then we measure those. Does those make sense? For example, like a year ago, I hired one sales guy to call through all of our trial users, and then we monitored like how much bigger the conversion rate was from those customers that he called compared to like no-touch sales, and then we learned that it didn't make any sense. So then we just cut that off. Then there's other examples like that we have tried some like marketing channels, for example, Quora as marketing channel. And then we look at the metrics that, okay, this looks really good. Let's put more money there. And obviously it like when we decide, when we see that, okay, it makes sense for us to do something, then we need to build some kind of team to do that. So in that way it relates to the team building. But yeah, like we develop our business based on trials and metrics.
Maria.
I was actually thinking this earlier, since everyone are counting their customer acquisition costs, and you mentioned the customer retention cost earlier today. So I was thinking that maybe calculating all these costs maybe would help the company actually thinking or noticing where to put the money in which teams.
Yes, thanks. So one more question, and then yes, the last one.
So probably you are quite familiar with Snapchat. I'm not sure how relevant this would be to the topic, but you know that it started to grow quite big, and for maybe a few months it became a quite popular app. But recently it has a lot of like millions of euros, dollars. So I was wondering if you would give any answer, if you are familiar, if you know about it. Where did they go wrong? Because they had a lot of potential.
Anyone?
You don't necessarily need to answer.
No, but it's a little bit, I don't think Snap is so much of a SaaS business, but I think it is, I mean, it is in a territory. I think this whole kind of social media, the half-life for many social media channels has proven to be pretty short. Or at least they stall. I mean, Twitter was also before the IPO, and then they've kind of also plateaued and stuff like now their numbers looking a little bit better again. But I think it's an incredibly challenging business that where the half-life, in particular if you look at the audience of Snap, which is pretty young, you'll see. I think that's it is really a challenge to turn that type of hype or where you have explosive growth, to turn that into something, a stable kind of sustainable business. I think that is, in general, I think pretty challenging. I mean, even some of the big ones haven't got their monetization model in shape. Obviously, you can IPO apparently anyway, but that's another story.
I think like Facebook, when they brought stories to Instagram and Facebook, that really like hits Snapchat. So probably that's one of the biggest reasons.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left. So one more question. So for everybody. So what is your 3 points for startup to looking for funding? Let's start from Pekka. Very quick round.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like you need to have like good business and metrics to back that up, and you need to know your metrics. I think that's one thing. Then you also need to have a big vision. Like what are you building in like 3-4 years, and you need to simplify that and be able to tell that forward. And then to the actual fundraising process, it takes more time than you expect. You should reserve your time and others' time there, and yeah, I think those are the key learnings.
And this in particular goes for B2B. Make sure you solve a truly important and valuable problem for the customer. Surprising number of companies is kind of weak on this one, because that's what business is all about at the end of the day.
Well, I would say you need to have an excellent idea, great team, and just a decent revenue model, and you're good to go.
I was especially thinking about SaaS and game companies in general, so I kind of gathered my thoughts in these 3 points that, you need to have the metrics, but gather them wisely. There's a loads of free kind of tools and kits that you can use on Google and Facebook and different kind of platforms if you just know how to read the data and how to kind of include the data into your business. So actually you don't have to do huge investments at the first time on how to gather the metrics and how to analyze the metrics. Just be smart and ask with your colleagues and similar kind of entrepreneurs who have been doing it or have done it or are doing it at the moment, that what kind of tools there are at the markets. Then second, which is very, very important, at least from my standing point, is that, don't smoke screen anyone. Don't try to kind of boost your numbers. In Finnish, I would say that, if you approach an investor or possible partners, be brutally honest about your numbers and your metrics and your situation. Your numbers might be small at the starting point, but have faith for the investors and the partners. They will understand that if your metrics and your numbers are small at the beginning, but if you understand what they mean, if they are going the right direction and what numbers to follow and what metrics are crucial for your success, if you understand those, you still might be a very kind of investable target or company that the investors would like to work with. And then thirdly, this is more untangible to explain, but combined offerings. That's what we see a lot nowadays happening with different kind of applications or products. That if you can combine your offerings for several kind of industries or user bases at the same time, it would be awesome. Like Pollen VC, we started. It's a company that was formed with bankers, engineers, and players. So we first thought that our only kind of audience and the customers would be the game makers who would be needing this kind of a fast access capital when they are growing. But at the moment, we also have a couple of other business lines going on live that are investors and publishers. Investors need that kind of information that we can gather from our clients, and also publishers can utilize that kind of information. So that's kind of a combined offering, that you have multiple customer areas. If you just kind of figure it out how and where this information or service is used, that your application or product is doing.
I'd say make sure you represent your team well. This is more about games, but make sure you represent your game well. You have some proof that it works as a product, and have a plan for the market entry, if I can say it.
Good. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you very much for good discussion. So that was all, and let's give big hands to our panelists and speakers. Yes, and if you want to take a closer look on this discussion later, so you can find it from BackedbyCFO Facebook page.